Okay, I was going through the internet to come across some bushcrafting stuff, and I wanted to bring it out, the importance of it, things to know in a survival situation. As far as your tools you could keep with you at all the times: axes, knives for carving, cutting wood, building say you want to build a small log cabin or something for shelter. Then you have your bow drill for fire starting, and what it takes to make one of those and keep with you. Canoeing, if you have a canoe, you get out into the lakes or rivers for fishing, stuff like that. Edible plants identification, what's good, what's not. It gives you that in identifying the poisonous plants. It make you sick or even kill you. How to make your own fish hooks, stuff like that. Uh, cleaning game, cleaning fish, skinning it, taking care of that kind of stuff. Knowing your different snakes from what's poisonous and what's not, all the way down to carving spoons and bowls, chunks of pieces of wood, tracking the animals, deers. If you don't have any snow, there's different. If it's snow, it's a lot easier to track than it is in the fall with the leaves. You have to really pay attention to what you're tracking, follow their blood trail and stuff like that. Drinking water, purifying drinking water, and maintaining good drinking water throughout the time. Anytime you get any kind of wound and being able to take care of it. Starting fires with flint and the ferro rod, stuff like that. Making shelters, lean-tos out of wood, tarps, and knowing how to navigate by, if you got your compass, knowing how to read it. There's always using the sun. Sun changes from the time it comes up to it goes. You'll be able to tell time and what direction you're going. Sun always comes up in the east.
So basically, bushcrafting is a big majority part of your survival.
Yeah, yes, because you figure it takes every one of those little skills to keep you alive and throughout a day, months. And if you let them slip, hopefully one of the other people in the group remember what they learned, and they could just keep everybody in tune with what they need to know.
Right. Now, you had said something before about trying to start a little series or whatever on our channel for bushcrafting. Like you're going to pick something out, I guess, something a week and
Yeah,
build it and video that and show people how it's not as difficult as it sounds.
yeah, and well, I blame a lot of this on Dave Canterbury for watching him and stuff, and you learn a lot just from watching his YouTubes. He really
Yeah.
does these things.
He actually
You'd
has a
want to
school for
know
that. Hmm.
when you're out in the woods, your predators, what their tracks look like. You come across them, even though you don't see them, they're out there. I mean, I've had people talk about seeing mountain lions, and then when you get a hold of the game commission, they'll swear up and down, oh no, there's no mountain lions around here. At least people are seeing them; they're here.
Right. So
Trick
you're
of
going
that,
to
those cats are known to know how not to be seen until it's too late.
right. So you're definitely going to have to know exactly how to protect yourself, or at least ward that animal off.
Yeah. Coyotes, big problem. You see one, you got a problem.
Now, can you eat a coyote?
Um, I'd imagine it, but it doesn't really sound that tasty to me.
Well,
I guess
they're more of a
they're
scavenger.
scavengers. Yeah, they're scavengers like raccoons, possums. I imagine. like me and the Renegade were talking one day about eating possums, and it's like, yeah, but he's right. You get hungry enough, you'll eat that possum.
Right.
So just cook it well.
At 350 degrees.
Yes, 350 universal temperature.
So,
And
so
that's why you need to make sure you have a thermometer packed away in your bob. Make
Yep.
sure you get the meat brought up to the proper temperature.
and honestly,
I'm
I
not
do
sure what
have
the proper temperature is on a possum.
one. I'm sure we could find out.
I know people, they eat groundhogs and stuff like that. I never have, but they say they're really good.
Yeah, we
I
always
know a
say,
lot of people just shoot them because they were tearing up their fields.
and of course, the
Yeah,
good old, what do you call what's that on a half shell?
armadillo. That's
Armadillo
possum
on
on a
a
half shell.
possum on a half shell. But when you're looking at a survival situation, again, you're looking at foraging. So
Yeah,
with
it's all work. There's no, you
go to
know,
the store and get it.
yep. You're catching, you setting traps, snare traps, or whatever traps you got, like the trap we made for one of our training videos. Even though it's illegal, you're out in the middle of the woods and you want to eat, and this dead trap will do its trick.
That was a primitive death trap. It's listed in our long list of videos.
It will work.
And
I have snares, and I would probably get a few spring traps and be able to set them.
well, it wouldn't hurt for people to sit and practice whittling. I mean, that's your first stages.
No,
Learn your knife and to how you whittle away from yourself and be able to whittle a spoon, whittle a knife,
no,
whatever.
yeah. You get that thing going the wrong way and cut yourself open, you could be in a world of trouble.
Well, that's when the second part comes in.
Yeah. Well, you hit the right artery, you're going to be in big trouble. It's like making bowls, spoons. I mean, I've watched some stuff where they even out of cookie sheets. They made that little oven, a little reflector oven. I mean, to bake bread and stuff with.
Well, with the
And I'll probably
whittling,
make one of those here shortly.
with the whittling, you're forgetting about one of the most important things that you can whittle, and that would be a spear to either protect yourself or find food.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
You make
And
sharpened spears you can make for protection around your camp.
right, and
If you ever watched old history stuff and what the Viet Cong used to do and build make those sticks and stick them in the ground, and then the soldiers would walk through and step on them, and they would put feces and stuff on them so these guys would get infected and make them sick.
well, just like they're digging the hole and putting the spikes at the bottom of the hole so that they
Mm-hmm.
impale themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you can learn to, like, if you have to make some type of raft, use that to fasten your raft together.
It won't be fun, but you can do it.
I mean, everything's time consuming, and the first things when you go out that you'll learn in bushcrafting, the first important essential stuff is to gather wood, to gather water, make your shelter, and build a fire. And then you scavenge for food. Food's always the last thing to go because you need fire, shelter, and water to sustain your life first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can
You'll,
go hunting for your food, because you can last a few days without food. You can't last a few days without water. So bushcrafting is a major essential part of survival skills in the wilderness, or even if you're in an urban setting. I would imagine, things break. You have to, be able to makeshift something.
mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you can buy probably at flea markets and stuff, find those old drill augers they used to use back in the day, and and have them in your pack. So if you ever did have to drill a hole, you'd have a drill bit, but it's all by hand. There's no Milwaukee drill plugged in and zip. You do it all by hand.
Well, you gotta keep in mind of your weight too. I mean, if you're on foot and you got everything in one, bug out bag, you're going to be carrying a lot of weight. So you have to learn to adapt and overcome. And you'll hear a lot of that in the prepping world, in survival skills, is learning to adapt and overcome. And I guess we're kind of like MacGyvers, in a sense, because we're always constantly looking a way around things that normally we'd be able to have access to, electricity and power tools, like you mentioned, and similar things. So we have to make shift. We're going back in time, essentially. We're going back to when they first began, and make do with things, and it can be done. I've seen it. Like you mentioned, Dave Canterbury, he's absolutely awesome with that. He does everything with his hands, and that's why I am so worried about this society of today, the generation of today, because they're, for a lack of better term, lazy. The government has made everyone so lazy and complacent.
Well,
They made them dependent. They want everyone dependent on them, and that's not what this government was put on this earth for. The government's not here to take care of you.
Not only that, but no one really, like, you couldn't go out to people and be like, have you been primitive camping? A lot of people look at you and go, huh? And
yeah,
then,
because when you say camping, they think, oh, I'm going to go in an RV.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. With your PlayStation and your big screen TV and your cell phone and this
air
and that.
Instead of packing a tent and going out and hiking out into the woods a few miles and then finding a campsite and set up.
Yep. Or even a lot of times using GPS to get somewhere. Recently, well, last time I went down to Ocala National Forest primitive camp, I didn't use GPS because there's no cell phone signal in Ocala National Forest. It is that big. And multiple times I have found myself using the sun to get an idea of my bearings, and knowing where the roads went, that gave me an idea where I was and which direction I was going.
Also, rivers will do the same thing for you as far as direction.
Rivers flow to the south, except for the Nile. And since we ain't anywhere near the Nile, we're okay.
But we may have someone listening that is.
Yeah.
They'll have to figure that out in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
But for here in the States, that's a good way of judgment is using a river if you're nearby a river and how it flows and what direction it flows in. Having a compass, finding azimuths, I mean, that's all part of bushcrafting, and I look forward to see the future of what Hawkeye brings us, and be able to educate others that are just jumping on board or just waking up. We all have to start from somewhere.
Yep, everything's a learning curve. So.
Yep. And hey, I've been awake now 4 years, and I still learn stuff every day. That's why I say everyone in groups can bring forth set skills that I'm still learning. I mean, I had no idea of half this stuff, and Hawkeye woke me up with some of these things, and hey, I need to figure out how to make that or learn that. Same thing with Radar with his health benefits. I mean, everyone has their own skill sets to bring. Some may look at that and say, oh, well, that's just basic. Well, you have to start somewhere, and starting in the basics makes a difference. And if someone who has I've never made a spoon out of anything. I've never, I made a whittled wood just messing around, but my life didn't depend on it, and your life definitely depends on your bushcrafting skills.
Well, here's the thing. Back when we were kids, everybody had a pocket knife. I mean, everybody I knew did. Your granddad or your dad would give you a pocket knife. They tell you be careful, you don't cut yourself. And you'd go whittle stuff, make stupid stuff, you know, sharpen a stick, and sit around and stick it in the mud.
Right.
But
I grew up with one, but I was on a farm, so mine was more of a tool for cutting hay bales and that stuff.
but you always had a knife.
Yep.
And to this day, I always have a knife in my pocket, at least one. I only have a few, a couple
Couple hundred.
here and there. But there's so many different uses having a knife, and just to be careful with it because you can seriously cut yourself open bad if you're not paying attention to what you're doing.
And if you're out there, in an area where you cannot get to anybody to help you, you're gonna have to learn first aid to help seal that wound or heal that wound or protect that wound till you can get to your group or, whatever. So
The old saying when we were kids, and they'd always let's rub some dirt in it. And everybody nowadays is like, you'll get infected. Oh, you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
It'll stop you. It'll stop the bleeding.
that's where your first aid, it kind of like bushcraft is like chocked full of little tiny segments, and then it branches off from there. So you can have, all right, wound care, but then it'll branch off to first aid, and first aid covers a variety of things from something as simple as a nauseous stomach, sprained ankle, a bruise, to something that's a laceration, huge gaping wound, to some serious illnesses. So that's where that part branches off, and then you start taking your first basic first aid, which this group, I know our group and many other like it, supplies that skill, that training, that education. So as far as bushcrafting goes, that's a major essential in itself, alongside of everything branching off. How to build a secure structure for yourself so that it's not leaking, it's not going to be completely airtight.
Keep the weather.
Yes, keep the weather off of you.
And you build your fire so it reflects into your lean-to. So you don't have the fires not in it, but it's right outside it, and it can reflect the heat into that lean-to and make it quite warm, where you're not going to freeze to death.
Exactly, and also with cooking. You had told me before certain measures of way of building your fire so that you have that heat directed to a specific type of reflection, a reflector stove.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things with bushcrafting.
And there's a lot of things you end up not carrying with you because it's just too much weight, like you said. But some things you're gonna always have with you, and knives. You're always gonna need a hatchet. Those things will always be with you when you're going through the woods. But wherever your base camp is where you can keep your other items, like the reflector stove. All it really is a bunch of stainless steel cookie sheets, and you just fold them together, and there you go.
Well, something that's important to point out is just because you have knowledge, I'm saying anyone, not your particular Hawkeye, just because you have knowledge in bushcraft doesn't mean that's all you can use.
No.
Use it as another tool in your survival knowledge toolbox, and have it be yet one more way that you can survive.
Exactly, and that's what I was trying to point out, how things branch off. So, it sounds overwhelming, and it sounds like a lot to grasp and wrap your head around. You have first aid, bushcrafting, and learning your herbs and your edibles out in the wilderness. But it's really not that difficult when you finally put it down in a list format of things that you need and to think about.
Hmm.
and it makes, and it all comes together, makes sense. And like I said, if you're not alone and you're in a like-minded group, there's so many people out there that have input and ideas and resources that they can point them in the right direction or share information and make everything come together and help each other learn and educate, and then turn around and wake somebody else up and learn and educate them. And that's how the fire spreads. And that's one thing the government fears, is everyone waking up, everyone working together and not being divided, and learning these outside skill sets. Because like I said, we've all gotten accustomed to the same routine. We get up, we go to work, we come home, we, whatever. We have our gas in our cars, our amenities, our forks, our spoons, our knives, our plates, our cups, the water coming, flowing, electricity, air condition. We've gotten accustomed to all this stuff. We need something, go to the store. We will not have that opportunity when you're out in survival setting after shit hits the fan or a natural disaster happens. These like, for example, Hurricane Katrina, these left these people out in the middle of nowhere in flooding conditions. How are they going to survive? How are they going to take care of themselves? What did they do? Instead of thinking outside the box, they sat and waited for the government to come help them. They were helpless. And in return, they took all their guns from them because martial law was a state of emergency, blah, blah, blah. So you see how all these things happen and trigger. If you're self-sufficient and educated, you can take care of situations. Now, like some of those guys, you've got water how many feet deep and you're stuck on a rooftop. Yeah, you're pretty much stuck. You're going to be there
Yeah,
until somebody comes helps you.
you're not going anywhere.
Exactly. But and that's understandable. Of course, a lot of those folks, I feel horrible for them because they were just placed everywhere. But that didn't have to happen. And if you're awake to it, you can see how things. For example, and I'm sure we're going to get to a segment of that sometime this week, where it is all this new geoengineering of the weather, this climate change.
Hmm.
They're pushing it this way. They're pushing us to famine and pushing us to, having to feel like we're helpless because we don't know these things and how to take care of ourselves. So these are good skill sets to learn, and that will ensure your survivability so much greater than not knowing and thinking, hey, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And when it does happen, then you're stuck because you didn't take the opportunity to seek out your resources. And so, like I said, I'm looking forward to that series when you able to get on that and start showing us some of the things that this group can provide as far as educational. And I know we can bring a lot of that to our survival weekends that we have twice a year, and help others educate and learn and do things firsthand, because it's so much. You can read it out of a book all day long, but until you put your hands on it and learn hands on learning, that way, is when you truly get it. I mean, it's the same with Hawk, or with Radar. He got his rocket stove, and you can read the description, you can read how to make, how to get it lit and all this stuff, but it's not really the same until you're out there physically getting that thing lit. Yeah, the rocket stove. So, all right, that's it. Thanks.